moved into the house at the start of spring. It felt like the beginning of something better. New walls, new air, a quiet street that promised peace. My girlfriend and I had saved for years to get here. We even rescued a cat, Bella, just before the move. It all felt right. The only thing out of place was the house to our right. Someone had started renovating it, then stopped halfway through. Its windows were dark, its garden overgrown. The old fence had been torn down and never replaced. That meant our backyard opened straight into theirs. Two empty spaces, side by side, divided only by air. Behind that abandoned house was another property. A group of young men lived there. We'd see them sometimes cutting through the empty yard to reach the street. At first it seemed harmless. Maybe they knew the owner. Maybe they had permission. On our first night, we sat outside, enjoying the quiet. The air smelled of damp grass and distant rain. When I looked toward the row of houses behind us, I noticed a window lit faintly by a street lamp. A man stood there, staring at us. He didn't move, didn't blink, just watched. For 30 minutes, that gaze never left. No expression, no purpose, just presence. We eventually went inside, trying to laugh it off. But something about that face, pale, expressionless still, stayed in my head long after we turned off the lights. The next few days were ordinary. Work, unpacking, the quiet hum of a new neighborhood. Then one evening, we decided to sit in the garden again. It was dark. The stars were out. We were mid-conversation when we heard something move, the scrape of wood dragging across gravel. 3 men stood in the gap where the fence used to be. They didn't say a word, just stared. I asked if they were okay. The youngest, maybe 29, held a large black bag. He offered us washing tablets, stolen, I guessed. When we refused, he smiled. It wasn't friendly. It was the kind of smile you remember later. Then they left. Not hurried, just casually walked back into the darkness like they lived there. We thought it was over. It wasn't. Over the next week, they came back. Not every night, but often enough. They'd cross the garden, whisper, laugh under their breath. Sometimes they'd just stand near the broken fence watching, never crossing fully into our space, just close enough to remind us they could. We called the police once when we heard them again around midnight. 2 officers arrived quietly, walked through the overgrown yard next door, lifted the sagging fence, looked around, then left. No explanation, no questions. Days later, the police knocked again. They said the men from behind us, the ones we'd seen cutting through, had been evicted for antisocial behavior. Apparently, we weren't their only targets. I remember feeling relief wash through me. For the first time, I thought maybe we could relax. That hope didn't last. One afternoon, while I was showering, I heard a loud bang outside. By the time I threw on clothes and ran out, my girlfriend was in the spare bedroom with her phone, recording. She whispered for me to stay quiet. There was a man in the empty garden, someone we'd never seen before. He pointed up at our window, right at her. When he realized she was filming, he sprinted straight toward the house. He tried the door handle on his way past, then ran back, lifted the fence, and started slamming his fists on the windows of the abandoned house. Each hit echoed through the street. We called the police again. They came, watched the footage, and said they'd look into it. That night, neither of us slept. Every creak of the house felt alive. Even Bella hid under the bed. 2 nights later, at 2:16 a.m., we heard whistling, low, deliberate. The kind of whistle meant to get someone's attention. Then came a soft tapping on the window. Not random, rhythmic, patient. When we checked the cameras, nothing had recorded. We stayed still, too afraid to move, until the sound faded. The silence afterward was somehow worse. The next morning, we went to stay at my mother's house. We came back the following day, thinking we'd overreacted, but when we reached the front door, our Ring camera was gone. It lay on the ground, the SD card missing. That was when fear became something else, constant. The officer on the phone said the missing camera could be a sign of planning. That phrase still echoes in my head. The nights that followed were filled with noises, banging, whistling, shadows moving where they shouldn't. We filed report after report, but nothing changed. Then one night, while watching old clips from our security feed, we checked the live view. There he was. A man stood in our garden, black mask covering his mouth, hood pulled tight, arms outstretched, palms open, as if in mock worship. He stared up at our window, head tilted slightly to one side. We froze. The camera was inside now, so it didn't record. He said something. We couldn't hear what. Then he walked across the street and stood there, staring, for half an hour. The police said it wasn't illegal to look at a house. That's what they called it, looking. We called it terror. Every noise outside became an alarm. Every quiet moment was another chance to imagine him out there, waiting. At 2:52 a.m. one night, we got another alert. 2 masked men, flashlights cutting across our windows. One carried something metallic, maybe a crowbar. They moved slow, calculated. We didn't speak. We didn't breathe. Just watched through the dark. They never tried the door again after that night. But they didn't stop either. The same man still shows up, standing across the street in daylight, sometimes waving, sometimes just pointing. The police still say it's nothing. We've got more cameras now. We record everything. But it doesn't change the feeling. That deep crawling sense that someone is always just beyond the fence, watching. Today, he came again. Stood there for several minutes, eyes locked on the window. We caught it on video, and now we wait. I used to think fear was something that came and went, but this kind stays. It doesn't fade. It just learns your name. I used to work night shifts at a small printing plant on the edge of town. It was quiet, repetitive work. Just me, the machines, and the hum of fluorescent lights. Most nights, I liked it that way. The building sat near an industrial field surrounded by rows of empty warehouses. During the day, the place looked abandoned. At night, it felt buried in its own silence. I'd clock in at 9 p.m., check the presses, then walk the floor with a flashlight. The air always smelled of ink and old paper. There were 12 windows in that building, I counted once, all narrow, fogged with dust, and high enough that you couldn't see outside, except one. The 13th window. It wasn't listed on the floor plan, and the manager never mentioned it. It sat at the far end of the hallway near the loading dock, behind a stack of unused pallets. It looked newer than the others, the glass clearer, the frame unpainted. The first time I noticed it, the glass reflected the faint glow of the exit light. I remember walking closer, expecting to see my own reflection. But what looked back wasn't me. It was another version of the hallway. Same lights, same floor, but darker. The difference was subtle. A dim, hollow version of the space I stood in. No sound, no movement. I took a step closer. The air felt heavier near it, colder somehow. When I reached out, my fingertips almost touched the glass. And that's when the reflection blinked. Just once, slow. I stepped back. The reflection didn't. That night, I left early. I didn't tell anyone. I tried to convince myself it was the lighting, maybe the flicker of the overhead bulbs. But the next shift, I had to walk past it again, and the window was still there, clear as ever. I ignored it at first, but by midnight, I started hearing things from that end of the hallway. Faint knocks, 3 at a time, always spaced exactly the same. 1, 2, 3. It went on for hours. Every time I looked, the glass was dark, like the world on the other side was waiting for me to step closer. By my third shift that week, the knocks had changed. Now it was a soft, dragging sound, like fingertips moving down the glass. I checked the hallway cameras. Nothing there. The feed cut out near that corner. It always had. Around 3 a.m., I gave in and moved the pallets aside. The window sat clean and perfect in the wall. No grime, no dust. When I leaned in, I realized the reflection wasn't matching me anymore. It was delayed, maybe half a second, then a full second. I lifted my hand. The reflection lifted his, just slower. Then it didn't put it down. I froze there, watching my own arm remain raised in that dark version of the hallway, even as mine fell to my side. And then the reflection smiled. Not wide, just enough for me to see it knew I'd noticed. I shut off the lights and left through the side door. When I came back the next day, that part of the hallway had been sealed off with plastic sheeting. Maintenance tags hung from the frame, window replacement scheduled. But no one ever replaced it. Weeks went by. I tried not to think about it, but some nights, when the power flickered, I could swear I saw the faint outline of that glass behind the plastic. A dull glow, like something was still there, breathing under the surface. Then, one stormy night, the power went out completely. The emergency lights flickered red across the walls. I walked the floor with my flashlight, checking for water leaks. When I reached the loading dock, I saw it. The plastic had been torn down. The window was uncovered again. This time, it wasn't reflecting anything. It was showing the other hallway. But someone was standing in it. A man, half lit, wearing my uniform. No sound, no movement, just standing there, exactly where I stood. I whispered, "Hello?" and his lips moved, a perfect echo of the word. But the voice came from behind me. I turned. No one there. When I looked back at the glass, the man was closer. Half his face hidden in shadow, one hand pressed to the glass from the other side. I stepped back until my shoulder hit the wall, and that's when the intercom crackled to life, though no one was in the office. It played the same sound over and over, 3 knocks, then silence. When the lights came back, the window was gone. The wall was solid concrete, no trace of glass, no frame, just paint, uneven and fresh. I quit the next morning, didn't even wait for my paycheck. A few weeks later, I drove by the plant to grab my last box of things. They'd already closed it down, something about electrical issues and unsuitable wiring. But even from the street, I could see it. In the far end of the building, just above the dock door, a glint of glass catching the light. The 13th window. It wasn't on the blueprint. It never was. And sometimes, when I can't sleep, I still dream of standing there again, watching my reflection blink before I do. There's a stretch of land just outside my hometown. Nothing but empty fields and tall grass as far as you can see. When I was a kid, we used to ride our bikes out there after school. The place was peaceful in the day, but no one went there after dark. People said the land was cursed. That's what they always say about places that feel too quiet. But I never believed it. Not until I went back as an adult. It happened last autumn. I'd been driving home from a friend's house just past midnight. The fog had rolled in thick, the kind that sits low to the ground and swallows the headlights. I took the old farm road, a shortcut I hadn't used in years. Halfway through, I saw her, a girl standing alone in the field, barefoot, wearing a white dress that hung loose around her shoulders. She wasn't waving or calling for help, just standing there, facing the road. Her head tilted slightly, like she was trying to listen. I slowed down. The air felt colder inside the car. I remember rolling down the window just a little. The sound that came through wasn't the wind. It was humming, a soft tune carried on the air, almost like a lullaby. Something in me said to keep driving, but I stopped instead. I got out and called to her, asked if she needed help. No answer. When I stepped closer to the edge of the field, I noticed something strange. The fog didn't move around her. It hung perfectly still, like she was part of it. Then she stopped humming. Slowly, her head turned, not all the way, just enough for me to see one eye glint in the dark. That single movement made my chest tighten. I took one step back. The ground felt softer there, almost like mud, but the road had been dry. When I looked down, the earth was covered in footprints. Hundreds of them, small, bare footprints, all pressed into the dirt, leading away from the field and ending right where I stood. I turned back toward the car. The door was still open, headlights cutting through the fog, but the girl was gone. For a long moment, I couldn't move. The air smelled like wet soil and something faintly sweet, like rotting fruit. Then I heard it again, the humming, this time closer. I got in the car and locked the doors. I turned the key. Nothing. The engine wouldn't start. The headlights began to dim. In the distance, I saw her again, only now she was standing on the road right in front of the car. No fog around her this time. Her hair hung wet against her face. She didn't look old, maybe 16, 17, but her eyes, they looked empty, like the color had been drained from them. I pressed the horn. It didn't make a sound. Every noise in the world felt gone. Just that humming, quiet and endless. Then she smiled, and for a moment, I thought I saw her mouth move. Not in a grin, but like she was whispering something. Her lips barely parted. The sound that came through the glass wasn't a voice. It was breathing. I slammed the car in reverse, tires spinning through the mud until the engine caught. When I looked forward again, she was gone. I drove all the way home without stopping, didn't look in the mirrors, didn't slow down, but the humming stayed in my ears, even after I parked in my driveway. The next morning, I found handprints on the rear window. Small, smudged, as if someone had been leaning against the glass, watching inside. I didn't go near that road again for months, but sometimes when the weather turned cold, I'd smell that same sweetness in the air, faint but familiar. I started checking my car windows before I drove anywhere. Then last week, I got a call from my cousin, who still lives in town. He asked if I'd heard about the accident on the old farm road. A young woman's car had been found in the ditch, engine still running, headlights pointing into the field. The driver's door was open, and there were footprints leading out into the fog. They never found her. He sent me a photo from the local paper, the same field I remembered, empty and gray under the morning sky. But when I looked closely, just behind the tall grass, I could see it, a figure in white, faint, blurry, watching the camera. I didn't tell him what I saw. There's no way to explain something like that without sounding crazy. But that night, when I drove home, I took the long way around. Even from miles away, I could see the fog sitting over that stretch of land, unmoving. And when I passed the turnoff, the radio in my car flickered, just once, a single note, low and soft, almost like someone humming. I turned it off, rolled the windows up tight, but I could still hear it, faint and steady, coming from somewhere behind me. I didn't look,